Hey everyone, this is Tyler Lampotter, and I'm a Principal Product Manager at Celigo. Today I'm going to show you how to use Celigo in conjunction with Snowflake Snowpipe. That way you can use Celigo to extract data from your various source applications and then dump it into an S3 bucket, and then have Snowflake Snowpipe auto-ingest it into your Snowflake tables. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a S3 bucket. So I'm going to come into my AWS account, come to Amazon S3, and then go to create a bucket. So from here, I'll just go create a bucket. I'm going to keep everything standard and default. And then you're going to need to name your bucket at least. In my case, I'm going to do Celigo Labs Snowpipe. And then create bucket. And there we go. Now we've got the Celigo Labs Snowpipe bucket. All right, after you set up your S3 bucket, you need to go get your access key and secret so that you can create the connection within Celigo. So if I come over to the IAM section, come over to users, go to your user, go down to security credentials, then down to access keys. You can go create a new access key. In this case, we are going to be doing application running outside of AWS. Give it a short description, in this case just Celigo, and then create that access key. So if I copy that access key, and then copy the secret as well. And then we can click done, and we'll just come back over to S3. All right, so at that point, you want to go over to Celigo. Just come to the home page here. Let's go to create a new flow. And then on this flow, we want our destination to be S3. So we'll add a destination, search for S3. We want to transfer files into S3. We want to create a new connection. In this case, Celigo, let's just name it. Let's just label it Snowpipe. Paste in the key, paste in the ID, test the connection, and there we go. All right, we can save and close. Then we're going to go set up the actual import. And I'm just going to name it place file. I do want to generate files from records. I'm going to choose JSON as my file type. I'm in US East 1. My bucket name is Celigo Labs Snowpipe. Just to make sure. Yep, Celigo Labs Snowpipe. And then I've got this file name here. You can change that if you want. And if you've got maybe different folders or directories within your S3 bucket, like in this case, I have like a generic directory. You can put that within the key itself. So generic and then slash your file name. All right, so I'll just keep it simple, file name, and then save and close. All right, now we're going to actually go to create a source just so we can have an example here. So let's go add a source. Let's choose Shopify, for example. I want to export records from Shopify. I already have a Shopify connection here established. And then let's just get orders. Choose my resource. In this case, I want to go down to order and then order. I want to retrieve a list of orders and then preview. And then you can see that data coming over from that demo Shopify account that I have. And then we can just save and close. And there we go. Now we just have a flow that is Shopify to S3. And then you can turn it on and run it. So I'll enable it for now, and we'll come back at the end and actually run it and place that file. All right, so the next thing you're going to want to do is to create an IAM policy so that Snowflake can actually access that bucket. So after you create the bucket, come over into IAM. Come over to policies. And then we are going to create a new policy. From here, flip over to JSON. And the Snowflake documentation actually gives you this JSON payload for the policy. So I'm just going to paste it in. And I'll link the documentation down in the description. From here, I'm just going to give access to the full bucket. So I'm going to remove the prefix. But if you had like a folder within your bucket that you want Snowflake to access as opposed to the entire bucket, you can keep the prefix and then keep going down levels of prefixes for which specific folders that Snowflake has access to. So I'm going to drop off that. And then I'm going to replace my bucket with my bucket name. In this case, I made Celigo Labs Snowpipe. And I'll copy the same thing down here. And again, I'll remove this prefix and just leave the asterisk so that it has access to everything. I'll click next and I'll name the policy. In this case, I'm just going to name it Celigo Labs Snowflake Access. Sorry, Celigo Labs Snowpipe Snowflake Access. And that's pretty much it. Create the policy. After creating your policy, you're going to want to create a role after that. So come over to roles, create a role. Here I'm going to choose an AWS account. I'm going to choose this account for now, but we're later going to change it. And then we're going to require an external ID. For now, we're just going to put a placeholder in. Once we actually create the integration record within Snowflake, we'll come back and update this trust entity with the correct external ID and account number. I'll go to next. And then I'm going to choose the policy that I created in the prior step. So I'm going to search for Snowpipe and select it. And then I'm just going to label this role name. So I'm going to choose, again, Celigo Labs Snowpipe role. And that's pretty much it. And now we will create the role. After creating your role, you need to get the ARN of your role. So I'm going to search for the role that I just created, open it up, and then copy this ARN. Next, I'm going to come over to Snowflake, and I'm going to actually create a storage integration. So to start off, I'm going to copy the SQL command from Snowflake documentation on how to create the storage integration. So here it is. I'm going to name the integration Celigo Labs Snowpipe. I'm an external stage S3 bucket, and here's that IAM role that we just copied from the prior screen. Paste that in. And then my allowed locations, in this case, I actually just want to allow pretty much everything. So I'm going to remove this second piece, delete the path here because everything in the bucket is fine to use. And then I'm going to put my bucket name in, which was Celigo Labs Snowpipe. Cool. And then from there, we're going to create it. You need to be an account admin or have the create storage integration role for Snowflake to do this. I'm an account admin, so I'm just going to create it here. There we go. Now it's successfully created. Okay. After creating the storage integration, you need to describe the integration that you just created so that you can get the Snowflake user ARN and the Snowflake external ID so that we can go update those AWS roles and policies to give Snowflake access to those particular buckets. So what I'm going to do is do a describe command, describe integration, if I could spell. integration, Celigo. Snowpipe. From here, you're going to use the storage AWS external ID and the user ARN. So copy those, and then we're going to go over to AWS and update those policies and roles that we created. All right, we're going to go back over to AWS. And I'm already on that role since we were copying the ARN into Snowflake on the prior step. I'm going to come under trust relationships, and then I'm going to edit the trust policy. For here, I'm going to change the ARN value into the Snowflake user value. And then I'm going to change the external ID to be the external ID that we got from that integration. And that's pretty much it. You're going to update the policy, and then you should be good to go. All right, after you update that policy in AWS, you're going to actually come back to Snowflake and set up the Snowpipes. So come back into Snowflake, and you are going to run a couple commands. So you're going to want to actually create a stage. The stage is going to be an external stage created within Snowflake, referencing that storage integration that you previously created. This is basically just going to point to that S3 bucket, and then you can query files that are sitting in that stage. So if you go ahead and create the stage, I think I've already done it here. I'll add a create or replace. Then go ahead and run that. There you go. Now you've made your stage. You're going to want a table as well for these files to land into. In my case, I'm just going to create a pretty generic table. It's going to have the file name of the file that was actually in S3, the row number, file content key, modified date, scan time, and then the data itself is all going to be shoved into a variant field. So I'm going to go ahead and run that as well. Sorry, I already have it, so I'm going to replace as well. Create or replace. Go ahead and run. There we go. And then you're going to want to create a file format. So in my case, Celigo will actually be putting in JSON files into the S3 bucket, and the entire JSON file is wrapped with an array, and it has all of your records as objects within that single array. So in this case, I'm going to make a file format that's type of JSON, and then I'm going to strip the outer array so that when you look at it in Snowflake, you get a row for every single object that's within that array. All right, go ahead and run that as well. There we go. And from there, all you have to do is then create the pipe. So this create pipe command from Snowflake is you name your pipe here. I'm setting auto ingest to true. So this is as Celigo is putting files into the S3 bucket, it'll actually auto ingest these. You could set it to false and then actually trigger this pipe to run on a schedule or something like that. And then you have your copy into function. So this is going to actually copy that data into the table that you created here. And then I'm selecting from that stage. So you can see here I have a select statement from that Snowflake stage, or the stage that I created previously, querying the metadata of the file and then parsing that JSON here. And then specifying that file format at the very end of what I just created in the last step. So if you go ahead and run that, oh, I already have it existing as well, so create or replace. All right, after you create the pipe, you actually need to do a show pipe call. This is going to give you the SQS notification channel here. So what you're going to do is actually just copy this notification channel value, go back over to your S3 bucket, go to properties, go down to event notifications, and you can label it Snowpipe or whatever you want. On object creation, it's going to event, come down here to SQSQ, enter your ARN, and then paste it in, and then save changes. And there you go. Come back over to Snowflake. you can still see that the table is empty. If I go back to S3 and drop a sample file in, drop this file. Oh, let me permanently delete this here real quick. There you go. Now drop the file in, upload it, come back to Snowflake, and we should see that come into this table here shortly. All right, and there we go. We've got 2 rows sitting in that table now, both from that file that's sitting in S3. As new files get dropped there, they'll actually auto get put into this table. You could set like an auto purge policy as well. So once these are ingested, you could have them auto purge from your S3 bucket. In this case, I didn't do that, but in your case, maybe you want that. You can actually see all of that raw data sitting in that variant column called data, and then you can query it and transform it however you need. All right, so finally, we're ready to actually run a Celigo flow. So come back to the flow that we made earlier. Here we go, and I'm just gonna run it. This is limited to only pull out 20 orders from Shopify, just so we can see those 20 orders come into that S3 bucket and then into that Snowflake table. All right, we're in progress. We've got the 20 orders pulled, and then we're writing that to the S3 bucket now. All right, now that it's done, come over to your S3 bucket. You can see that it's refreshed, the file is sitting there. And then let's come over to Snowflake, query that table, and see if we get our results in there. And there we go. You can see I have all those Shopify orders there, along with those very 2 records that I had the sample data from. And then I can look at the data, look at the variant column data, and then query it however I need. So here's all those Shopify fields that I can easily query and then transform into other tables. So that's pretty much it. Hope this was helpful, and see you guys on the next one.